Hello, gentlemen. Today, as we're studying the Iliad, I want us to focus very specifically on Achilles, his characterization, and what Homer creates by offering us scenes of him with his mother. So this is a part of your text that you don't actually have. It is in book 1, but it's cut out from the excerpt that your book shares with you. Your excerpt mostly focuses just on the insubordination of Achilles with Agamemnon. However, immediately after he leaves and he storms off and has those words with Agamemnon, the original text, or the text, I shouldn't say the original, you are reading an original text, but the text does show that he goes to his mother, and he sits by the side of his ocean. His mother is actually a sea goddess, and so that's how he contacts her. He sits by the water, and he cries. And as we're looking at this specific piece that I'm going to read to you, I want you to think what is added to Homer's discussion of war by showing this very vulnerable side of Achilles, who had previously been introduced as this amazing individual, this ruthless warrior, and this incredibly angry individual. So as I'm reading this, I want you to keep those things in mind. As I'm reading this, I also want you to keep in mind what makes him most vulnerable. And I want you to think of him, he is this kind of half-god, half-man character. And whenever we're dealing with a half-god, half-man character as related to Greek literature, there is this dichotomy of this immortality, this invincibility, but also this very keen awareness that the individual is still mortal, that the individual still has some weakness and some vulnerability, and that usually has to do with the impending doom that surrounds that person. And by impending doom, I don't necessarily mean like a horrible oracle that says something awful is going to happen, which many of these individuals did actually have, but I mean more along the lines of death. Here they have family members who cannot die, will not die, and they have this awareness that they're not as godlike or as completely immortal as their family members, and so it really does weigh on these individuals. And so we're going to look at Achilles. Okay, so I'm going to read to you the scene, and then after I read to you the scene, I'm going to talk about it a little bit. This, again, if you want to look at it yourself, it is in that Norton anthology that I've already shared with you, and it is on page 129, and it starts just around line, let's say, I believe it's 412. So if you're interested in checking this out on your own, you can definitely take it out of the library and take a look at it. So here is the scene, immediately after he freaks out on Agamemnon. But Achilles wept, and slipping away from his companions, far apart, sat down on the beach of the heaving gray sea and scanned the endless ocean. Reaching out his arms again and again, he prayed to his dear mother. Mother, you gave me life. Short as that life will be, so at least Olympian Zeus, thundering up high, should give me honor. But now he gives me nothing. Atreus' son Agamemnon, for all his far-flung kingdoms, the man disgraces me, seizes and keeps my prize, he tears her away himself. So he wept and prayed, and his noble mother heard him. Seated near her father, the old man of the sea, in the salt green depths, suddenly up she rose from the churning turf, like mist, and settling down beside him as he wept, stroked Achilles gently, whispering his name. My child, why in tears? What sorrow has touched your heart? Tell me, please, don't harbor it deep inside you. We must share it all. And now from his depths the proud runner groaned. You know, why labor through it all? You know it all so well. We raided Thebes once, Edion's sacred citadel. We ravaged the place, hauled all the plunder here, and the armies passed it round, share and share alike. And they chose the beauty Chryses for Agamemnon. But soon her father, the holy priest of Apollo, the distant deadly archer, Chryses approached the fast-trimmed ships of the Argives, armed in bronze to win his daughter back. Bringing a priceless ransom and bearing high in hand, wound on a golden staff, the wreaths of the god who strikes from worlds away. He begged the whole Achaean army, but most of all the two supreme commanders, Atreus' two sons, and all ranks of Achaeans cried out their assent. "Respect the priests, accept the shining ransom." But it brought no joy to the heart of Agamemnon. Our high and mighty king dismissed the priests, with a brutal order ringing in his ears. And shattered with anger, the old man withdrew. But Apollo heard his prayer. He loved him deeply. He loosed his shaft at the Argives, withering plague, and now the troops began to drop and die in droves. The arrows of the gods went showering left and right, whipping through the Achaeans' vast encampment. But the old seer, who knew the cause full well, revealed the will of the archer god Apollo. And I was the first, mother. I urged them all, appease the god at once. That's when the fury gripped the son of Atreus. Agamemnon leapt to his feet and hurled his threat. His threat's been driven home. One girl Chryses, the fire-eyed Achaeans, ferry out in a fast trim ship to Chryse Island, laden with presents for the god. The other girl, just now the heralds came and led her away from camp. Briseus' daughter, the prize the armies gave me. But you, mother, if you have any power at all, protect your son. Go to Olympus, plead with Zeus, if you ever warmed his heart with any word or action. Time and again I heard your claims in father's halls, boasting how you alone of all the immortals rescued Zeus, the lord of the dark storm cloud, from ignominious stark defeat. That day the Olympians tried to chain him down. Hera, Poseidon's lord of the sea, and Pallas Athena, you rushed to Zeus. Dear goddess, broke those chains, quickly ordered the 100-hander to steep Olympus, that monster whom the immortals call Briareus, but every mortal calls the sea god's son, Aegeon, though he's stronger than his father. Down he sat, flanking Cronus' son, gargantuan in the glory of it all. The blessed gods were struck with terror. Then they stopped shackling Zeus. Remind him of that. Now, go and sit beside him, grasp his knees, persuade him, somehow to help the Trojan cause, to pin the Achaeans back against their ships, trap them round the bay, and mow them down, so all can reap the benefits of their king. So even mighty Atreides can see how mad he was to disgrace Achilles, the best of the Achaeans. And Thetis answered, bursting into tears, "O my son, my sorrow, why did I ever bear you? All I bore was doom. Would to God you could linger by your ships, without a grief in the world, without a torment. Doomed to a short life. You have so little time, and not only short now, but filled with heartbreak too, more than all other men alive. Doomed twice over. Ah, to a cruel fate I bore you in our halls. Still I shall go to Olympus, crowned with snow, and repeat your prayer to Zeus, who loves the lightning. Perhaps he will be persuaded. But you, my child, stay here by the fast ships. Rage on at the Achaeans. Keep clear of every foray in the fighting. Only yesterday Zeus went off to the ocean river to feast with the Ethiopians, loyal, lordly men, and all the gods went with him. But in 12 days the father returns to Olympus. Then for your sake, up I go to the bronze floor, the royal house of Zeus. I'll grasp his knees. I think I'll win him over. Okay, so this is a scene, again, that you don't have in your text. But what I want to draw your attention to is a couple things. First, look at what Achilles does. Achilles acts like a little baby. He's upset, and essentially, he tells on his leader to his mother. He recounts the whole story. And notice how Achilles puts himself kind of at the forefront as the voice of reason. He very clearly says that he was the first to tell Agamemnon that he needed to appease the gods and return the girl. And so he's put himself in this position where he did the right thing and other people have wronged him. Right? Typical move of a little kid when he feels wronged to go to his mother and claim that other people are doing the wrong thing. And so you have this awkward side of Achilles, who previously ruthless, vicious, angry, and now he is crying, he's broken, kind of pathetic. So that's one thing I want you to look at as we're thinking about the characterization of Achilles. The other thing that I want you to look at as we're thinking about the importance of this scene is just the idea of a parental relationship and what parental relationships add to a story. This isn't the only parental relationship that we see in this story. We also see Hector, and we see his relationship with his son Astyanax. And that's something that we're also going to be talking about today, but just not yet. But in this scene, I want you to just think about what is the plight of a parent? And how does that plight of a parent change when your child has been wronged? Or how does that plight of a parent change when you really can't help that child? And this is something that Thetis is coming to terms with. She bore Achilles. She certainly can appeal to Zeus on Achilles' behalf, but ultimately she's completely aware that her son is doomed. And she says, and this is on page 130 for any of you who choose to pull the text, and I hope that you are keeping notes as you're listening to these lectures. She says, "O my son, my sorrow, why did I ever bear you? All I bore was doomed." And then she calls him doomed twice over. And so she has this awareness that there's only so much she can do in this world for her son. She is also incredibly limited. And so, in general, if we're studying the human condition, we see the plight of man. He is, on some level, doomed because he is mortal. And this is something, again, that we've been looking at from the very beginning when we started with our short story unit. We've been following this idea of the plight of man and the vulnerability of being mortal. You see that really specifically in the bracelet, as the woman is literally looking at the wrinkles around her wrist and considering how she's wasted her life with this Francois character who doesn't even know her. And so you have to consider that these individuals, they're doing ruthless things, and this is, again, a byproduct of war, but at this most primitive level, they are so very vulnerable, and they have this childlike quality to them that is really evident in this specific scene with Achilles. So I'd like you to think about that in relation to this scene. I'd also like you to think about Hector's relationship with his son. If you're paying really close attention and you're reading carefully, you'll notice that Hector does have a nice relationship with his son. He loves his son. But his son literally goes from laughing to crying in an instant. And the thing that seems to scare him, if anyone was paying attention, is his helmet. When Hector is dressed for war, he is terrifying to his son. And it does create this boundary between them. He can't hold his son. His son won't go near him. He's afraid. But when the helmet comes off, you have these tender moments of Hector being able to hold his son. His son is laughing. You can kind of picture, you can like throw him in the air. There's this very tender scene. But again, Homer makes it really clear that helmet, or that evidence of war, it creates a problem in this parental relationship. So as you're thinking today about parental relationships, I again want you to consider what they add to the text. We talked the first day about how, we have these moments of peace and these moments of war, and that Homer is pitting them against each other on some level so that we can see that they're both part of human nature. And one of the most poignant places that we get that is within the parental relationship. So what is it about parental relationships that creates this other dimension of man that Homer wants us to pay attention to? So while you're writing today, while you're revisiting the text, I want you to really think about these specific issues.